means I'm the lead Republican on that committee. I serve as the assistant ranking member on the Rural Development, Ag, and Natural Resources Committee, and I'm on transportation. So there's 20 standing committees in the House, and I serve on 3, and that's about normal for most of us. We serve on 3. Some people serve on 4, depending on their workload. So anyway, that's about me, and I believe I'm on here today to talk about some early learning child care issues that are facing us in a big way. So I guess that being said, thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I will now pass it off to Andrew Perkins. Andrew, go ahead. Ooh, Andrew, your mic might be a little bit funky. I'm not sure if it's blocked. You sound a bit like a robot. Not yet. It still sounds a little bit funky. Are you able to join us from another device? I am not able to understand what you are saying. All right, it looks like Ginger is on the call with us. Andrew, I'm going to give you a moment and see if we can get that fixed, and then I will pass it off to Ginger. Ginger, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, sorry, for some reason it did get on my calendar. If it doesn't get on my calendar.
You're fine. We're having technical difficulties all over the place today. It's just one of those Thursdays. All righty. So I am going
what do you need?
You're all right in the moment.
Okay.
I'm going to, let's see here. It looks like Andrew is still having a couple of issues with his microphone. So to begin with, Ginger, since you weren't able to join us for our first education panel, I would love if you could just give an update on kind of the path that Ellensburg School District has taken for the past couple of months, and some, yes, I'm sure it was a windy one.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah. And then if you could give maybe just a brief update on what you think the fall will look like for you in this moment.
Yeah, we have an amazing staff, and we closed, on the 13th, and starting on that Monday, we were all ready and started at being able to provide food for our families, and we were up to about 9,000 meals a week, and about halfway through, we over 50,000 meals to our family, and it went up from there toward the end. And so one thing I'm really proud of in our community and of our schools, and especially our nutrition staff, our transportation staff, and our paraeducators really teamed together to provide those meals to our families. And so that was really amazing, and just an example of ESD teamwork. The distance learning, certainly for teachers, just to do a turnaround there was challenging. But fortunately, the way things fell, it was near our spring break, so we were able to just have folks leave, and we were able to do some trading with the weeks. And so teachers had an opportunity to gear up, and they really did a phenomenal job, considering that some of them had previous training in the use of like Google Classroom and others didn't. They teamed across the board. I mean, we had third grade teachers with other third grade teachers from other buildings working hard together to support each other with lessons. And so that was really phenomenal. I'll have to say, our teachers are so committed to the social emotional learning needs of our students, and just really went the extra mile to do parades for kids and videos, and really checked in with students. Many of our elementary teachers in particular did home visits. Our early learning coordinator really reached out and tried to keep those connections up with our preschools. And so it was, while it was challenging, it really promoted even more so a need for interdependence across the district. And I think that we came out of it even stronger as far as our teamwork and ability to work together, even than when we started the year. As far as next year, I just met with 6 different focus groups with over 200 different stakeholders in our communities, which included our Spanish-speaking parents, our secondary parents, our elementary parents, our elementary staff and secondary staff, and really just ask for their opinion. 2 different models that we're looking at right now. We have, as you know, 2 active cases right now in Kittitas County of COVID-19. And of course, we just applied to be in phase 3. And so I have been working very closely with Dr. Larson, and he said he could support us considering the model of bringing all students back. Certainly, like at Morgan Middle School, has a higher population, and the idea that all kids would wear masks and stay 6 feet apart is not feasible in many of the classrooms. But when you look at the CDC guidelines, it says promote 6-foot distancing. There's nowhere where it requires, it does require masks, but not so, you know, and so Dr. Larson's response to that was, well, the 6-foot distancing would have to be the not doing 6-foot distancing would have to be the exception, not the rule. So that's really what we're going for. Although Dr. Larson, I did a stakeholder meeting, brought together students, a cross mixture of students, parents, and staff members. And Dr. Larson joined our Zoom yesterday, which was great. We had about 75 people on that one. And he said that he is thinking that there may be some fluctuation there from going from the 6-foot distancing to possibly 3 feet, which would be a little more doable in places like Morgan Middle School. As far as the buses, if you read OSPI says you have to do every other seat and that kind of thing. He was thinking that, you know, as long as it is, we tried to space kids where we could, if they wore masks and you had all the windows down, we might be able to still have fuller buses, especially for students who don't have a very long bus ride. But we're still looking at that. Like, is there a way we could stagger, you know, the bus schedules? So bringing all kids back is one model. The other model is the hybrid. We're looking at the A-B, splitting kids in half, having an A group and a B group, A on Monday, B on Tuesday, having Wednesday be a day for staff to be able to do some planning, professional development, that kind of thing. And then Thursday be an A day and Friday be another B day. And when we brought our group together yesterday, there were some other models to look at. So we've talked to a lot of different people. I'm about ready to send a survey out to all staff and parents just as a temperature check. It's not a voting. We're not going to say whoever gets the most gets it, but it's just another way to gather more feedback as a body of evidence from all the, you know, all of the stakeholders' feedback and now the surveys to help us make a good decision. My job is to, you know, collect all that feedback. I'm working very closely together with principals. It's been a very collaborative process. But by the 24th, we're hoping to have a solid recommendation to give to our school board. Dr. Larson will be there for that too, which is wonderful. And then ask the school board if they're ready to adopt that recommendation as a model. We're also now considering something like starting the year with a hybrid. So that students and staff members can get used to the whole idea of wearing masks and the physical distancing, and we can get a better idea of what that looks like. And then maybe do that for first quarter. And then if everything goes well and we're still in phase 3 and everybody, you know, feels good about that, then switching at quarter to kind of more of a whole, bringing everybody back. So that's kind of where we're at. We're hoping to have our goal is to have a solid recommendation on the 24th.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. It looks like we have Andrew on the line. Andrew, do you want to go ahead and give your introduction and just a brief update of where you guys are at? I know you were also looking at the kind of having the 3-plan model of going forward. Any kind of updates from the last time you joined us?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to my computer. Sounds just worked all day, but that's
It
that.
happens. You're fine.
So I'm going to backward plan for you. So we don't start school until I think September 10th or 11th. And so based on the guideline from the state, we don't have to have a plan together 2 weeks before school starts. So we can wait until our August board meeting, late August. So we're not going to rush this. Just like Northwest, the seasons change all the time. And this is going to be quite an evolution of thought as we head towards, I guess, opening day, whatever that looks like. But Thorpe is very fortunate. We only average 14, 15 kids per class. So our starting point is much better than most other districts. We already meet the space requirements. We might be instead of 6, 5.5 or 5 feet 2 inches or whatever, but that is not too big of a consideration for us. We have, we're going to move our art department out to the gymnasium. We have 2 gyms, spread that out because art by nature moves around too much for us. So we'll move that. We'll probably put one grade in the other gym and the other fitness class up in the fitness room and stuff like that. But we don't have to do a lot of adjustments. I'm going to address that on next Wednesday night with parents. It'll be our first parent meeting, but we're not going to rush into the plan because we think it's going to change dramatically in 30 days. I think the Department of Health and Elle and I have written perfect plans, whereas we live in an exceptional world. And if you teach at the high school level, if you don't know the difference between perfect and exceptional, you realize there's reality and theory. So we need them to get into reality with us. Right now, they're in theory. So I think a lot of that is going to change because of that big pressure. So we're going to have a meeting. We're going to discuss it with parents, and then we'll wait till late July and see where the state is on that. But like I talked with parents before, we're going to come up with 3 plans. One is, and I hate to say full open because I don't know there'll ever be another full open again. I've met with my nurse and another person today, and I think what parents need to understand is that we've already had health and safety hygiene guidelines that I would say most of us operated on the gray. We're now going to operate a little bit more in the black and white. So it's not like we're introducing these hyper health safety guidelines. They were already there. PDA, kids staying separate, not touching, we're just going to strengthen those. And so I really hope people understand that as DOH and Elle and I really take a look at how you teach kids, this is doable. This can be done. I'm not worried about the students, the parents, and the staff coming up with a plan for full open. I need to know what the Kittitas Valley thinks. The parents have to step forward very vigorously and weigh in on this, which is hopefully every district is going to give them that opportunity, which we're going to afford them that by August 10th. And then August 10th, we're going to have another calibration meeting, and then we're going to get ready for that August 23rd board meeting. So in a nutshell, we're planning for full open. We're waiting for people like Representative Dent to weigh in on how he sees it. I come from his county where he lives right now, and it's a bit of a wild, wild west for a reason. They're hard workers over there, and they have to get things done, and almost every one of them are essential over there. So I think he knows what I'm talking about. So I don't have a lot for you because I really think a lot's going to change in 30 days, but we're lucky. We only average 14, 15 kids. So we're ready to roll, and I'm ready to answer any questions when you get to that. So.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And that was a great segue. We did have a couple of pre-submitted questions, so we will be getting to those. But for all of our attendees, if you do have a question that pops up during the discussion, please feel free to use the chat function. I will be monitoring that, so we will get to those. I know you're present, you're in attendance, and you want to know the answer to your question first. So we will kind of put the pre-submitted questions on pause and get to those chat questions. And then as we get closer to the start of the school year, we will be planning to host a part 3, just when everybody kind of knows a little bit more about what's going on. But for the moment, we will get to our pre-submitted questions. So the first question that we have is in regards to virtual learning, what have you learned? what is working well, what have you needed to fix, and what remains a challenge. And so I will go to Ginger for that question first.
I think that, well, for one thing, I really appreciated the ESD 105 promoted some great professional development by Jeff Utek. And there were districts across the state that participated in that. And I think that professional development was huge in supporting our teachers, in knowing what kind of, what does distance learning look like? How should it look different? He offered many great tools for teachers to use. And one of his concepts was this idea of a core four. And I think that was really helpful in grounding us across the district. And we already pretty much had that in place. But I liked the way he said this has to be in place to have a strong distance learning. So having a platform like Zoom, and we went through all the safety things with that and put in the passwords, and really didn't have major issues with that at all. You need an asynchronous video or an asynchronous platform where teachers can make videos. So we were using Loom, Screencastify. There were a few that were favorites with teachers. And I really appreciated, for equity reasons, the importance of asynchronous video, because it allows students to learn at their own pace. So if they attended a Zoom with a teacher, but then they also had a video that they could watch of their teacher, when they go to do their homework or to think about what the teacher said, they can go back and watch the video again on it. And so I thought that was a real positive outcome of our time of closure, is just really learning about and seeing the importance of those asynchronous platforms and ways of creating videos for students that they can go back and watch. The Google Classroom, the use of Google Classroom was also one of the important aspects of the core four. And then Google Drive was the fourth one. And Google Drive basically just helps them to organize in folders, their videos, their lessons. The other wonderful thing about Google is, the sharing of documents. It just makes it so easy to share documents, use Google Chat so that they can connect with each other, not just with Zoom, but using Google Chat as well. And I know it was great for me too, because I started to use more of those means, some of the core four, more than I had in the past. And so I think it was a good learning curve for all of us to really get good at those four different elements. I think the challenging thing is that we had to change so quickly that we really didn't have time to do the professional development like we would have liked to. But certainly that Jeff Utek and other forms, we also rolled out, the short clips from Google on how to use Google Classroom. Much of our curriculum also has virtual components to it. And so I think it was a good opportunity for teachers and principals to look at the virtual aspects of the curriculum that maybe hadn't been used as much in the past.
Perfect, thank you. All righty, Andrew, same question. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, Thorpe was already a one-to-one district, so we were able to, within 24 hours, get everybody internet service. So that wasn't a problem. It's not having the service, that's not a problem. We found that even though we're pretty far ahead of most, I came from a district that was quite shocked when I came to Thorpe how far ahead they are in technology with the students. But we did still have to learn some lessons about portability to the home and stuff. And we're fortunate here where our professional development was in-house. I've got some staff here that are very fluent in all the technology. And so we were able to use our own staff to PD train everybody on Google Classroom, Google Docs, and all that. So that really wasn't the issue. You can give students technology at home. The problem is that they probably aren't then going to use it for school. So that was an issue. Parenting, we had to I would say more it was a parenting issue. I think parents were a little bit of a shock. Case example, we'd have a kid tell a parent, I worked for 4 hours on this. And then they didn't realize we were actually monitoring their actual sites they went to, and they had worked for 10 minutes, and then 3 hours and 50 minutes they played games. So, the monitoring at home of parents had to increase substantially. So, but I will say that I think even as well trained our staff is, we're far more trained now on certain items that we probably knew about but weren't good at. So I would say this was, for the student, this was really good learning how to use technology. Because I think in a lot of career paths now, I have a son that works at Boeing. If you can have on your resume you're fluent in these certain technologies, you're more apt to get a job than whether or not you're a 3.9 or whether you got an A in English, to be quite honest with you. So I see lemonade out of this, that we can really tell the kids in the fall how important technology is. So as far as that tech issue, I think the only real challenge is parents need to step up. I have 4 kids. I have 14 grandkids, all under the age of 11. And I was there coaching them and prodding them and telling them, stop blaming the teacher. You got to do your job now. Your job as parent just got really serious. So really, that's my message for parents out there, that whether you like it or not, we can only do so much. And we needed a lot of parents to turn on the on switch. So.
Thank you. All right. Next question. How are your staff members keeping up with all of this? How would you gauge their morale, and are there any frustrations? Andrew, we'll go with you first.
Yeah, I think their frustration is, I think teachers in general, they really want to do a good job. They've been trained, and then suddenly they were asked to do something differently. And that's that lack of cognitive awareness of how good a job you're actually doing. If you've ever been in any new career, you really aren't really self-aware how good you're doing. So I had to constantly coach them up about how good a job they were doing. So that self-esteem, the finishing the cap on it, will be from the parents this summer, who really socially network with those teachers and say, we really appreciate you taking this on. This wasn't easy. I think they just were worried that they had let anybody down. And that's a compliment to the teaching profession, that they were constantly worried that they weren't doing enough. And so I had, I've done all the coaching I can. Now I need parents to step up to the plate and coach them through this summer and get them ready for the fall. Because, that was a rough ride for them, and they didn't see it coming. So that's probably my comment on that.
And Ginger, do you have anything to add?
No, I would just echo what Andrew said. Our teachers were amazing, and I was especially impressed with all the efforts, successful efforts that they made in connecting with students. That was such a passion for them, and they just did an excellent job in accomplishing that.
Thank you. All righty. Can you talk about any summer online learning or summer classes that you are offering, if you are offering any? Ginger, go ahead.
We're offering online classes for our high school students who received incompletes. And then we may be offering some kind of a jump start for our middle school students in August, but we're still looking at that as a potential plan. And I didn't mention this out loud, but I put it in the chat box. And that is another option that all parents will have, is we're going to run a virtual pathway, an online learning platform for any parent who, if they feel that it's not safe for their child to be at school because we don't have a vaccine for COVID-19, and no matter what model you look at, there is risk involved. And so we are definitely going to have an online program that they can access and still be an ESD student. But we really feel like that's important to offer to our parents.
That's great. Thank you. Andrew?
Yeah, what we've identified as probably the biggest issue for us is kindergarten through 6th grade. And so we're going to be running we got a grant to, each teacher is going to select those students. Of course, we prioritize special ed, learning difficulties, and then actually probably off the radar. So we're going to run a program for 3 weeks this summer, late July, early August, and we're calling it gap instruction. And then we have a learning assistance program that will start up in the fall, identify those kids within a week who we feel have gap. In 7 through 12, we'll run them through what we call the LAP program and get them up to speed. And then we're fortunate we don't have any big concerns of 12th or 11th grade for credit retrieval, but if we do, we can put them in the LAP program and retrieve credit. So yeah, this is going to put a little pressure on the system, but we anticipated it, and we're ready to go to identify those kids that need that extra support.
Perfect, thank you. We did have a question come in the chat for Ginger. Would the Morgan program be similar to Camp Morgan in the past, or is it more of an academic summer program that you're considering?
I would have to get back together with Michelle Bibich, the principal. I think they're hoping to have kind of a combination of both. Perfect,
thank you. And again, this is a great reminder. If you do have a question that comes up during the discussion, or if you weren't able to join the last panel and would just like a refresher, please feel free to use that chat function and answer whatever and ask whatever question you would like. And with that, I think we are going to move on to our legislation questions. Representative Dent, can you give us an update on what the future looks like for childcare and the work that you have been doing for that? Oh, you may have to unmute yourself.
Okay, it's not wanting to unmute. I'll just hold the space bar. So thank you for that. There is a lot going on. I wanted to talk a little bit about the, actually, I'm going to try to unmute this again. Hold this a second. There we go. Very good. So our childcare situation is a little bit dire, I think, at the moment. Out of as of April 15th, we had 1,466 childcare centers had closed that served over 75,000 children, which leaves us with roughly, and then it's more than just centers, it's the family home care and stuff too, providers, and which left us with just a little bit less than 4,000 providers left. And that was in April. And I know that it's less than that now. They've continued to close, and I'm very concerned about this because many of them won't reopen. They've had to lay their people off, and to find people who will work in these centers and such, you know, that's an art in itself to get the right people there to work in these centers and facilities, and then to have the patience and the talent to work on early learning with these young people. You know, and I love kids. I love to be around kids, and I could work there maybe a day and a half and I'd be done. You know, it's just because it's a challenge, and it takes a lot. It takes special people to do this. So we're losing these folks, which concerns me quite a lot. And what is happening, and I've had many providers touch base with me in the last two months, is they're afraid they're not going to be able to come back and reopen. Many of them had to give up their facilities where they were rented, and they couldn't make their rent or lease payments, and they had to give them up, so they no longer have their physical facility, and they just don't know how they're going to proceed. So and the way it is, some of the maybe the higher end centers have been able to continue, the parents continued to pay the tuition on their weekly or monthly basis, even though they weren't working and their kids weren't going to the center. But that's even slowed down now because, you know, they realize that this is going to be a little longer than they thought. So many of the kids have pulled out, which is a further financial burden upon our centers. So, you know, what I see is it's going to be difficult in how we're going to prop these folks up to keep them in business. And we're going to have to help them. But it's a challenge at the moment with the DCYF, Department of Children, Youth, and Families, that still have about $29 million from the CARES Act, and they're not thinking about propping up the centers as much as they're thinking about doing other things, which concerns me. And I am voicing my concerns with the DCYF to make sure that we think about we need to keep childcare in place, our early learning programs in place, because the bottom line, if we're going to put people back to work, they need that childcare, and if they don't have the childcare, then it will change. So as we move forward, we're working on legislation right now. I am with staff, I sat down with some childcare providers and we talked about what we could do to provide some relief for them, to keep them in business, to keep them above water. And we jotted down our ideas, and now I'm working with staff to put that together. And predominantly that revolves around how we can reduce the cost of being in business for those folks. Maybe back off on some of the financial requirements that they have to do. As far as a lot of different things. Their facilities and the different the physical part of their facility and such. So we can back off a little bit. I'll give you an idea. Over in Royal City, there's a child care center over there, and they do a great job. These people are so passionate with their kids, and they want to increase their facilities, and they're full. They are full, and they wanted to double their size, but you know what? They couldn't get around the regulations to do that because they just couldn't come up with enough money. And so we're looking at that and how we can maybe back the department off for say a 2-year period in order to keep everybody in business and keep them in place until we can get the economy back up to where it was. Even though I think the economy will bounce back relatively quickly, there'll be some aspects of it that will not, because there'll still be quite a few people who will continue to work from home that didn't work from home before. So we're going to be faced with a certain amount of that, which will directly affect our child care centers. So yes, we are working on it. I'm working with the stakeholders because they're the ones, I believe that they're the ones doing the work, and they have they know what we can do to make it better for them. So that's what I would like to accomplish. So I don't have the draft yet. I'm hoping to have the draft by next week sometime, midweek, I'm thinking. So at that time, I'll get it out and share with folks and get some feedback on that. So is that answer did I get all the question there?
You did. Thank you so much.
Okay. Is there anything else? Was there another part of that question that I might have forgotten it? So.
No, I think you covered everything. I would like to give this opportunity to any of the attendees. If you have any questions for Representative Dent regarding the future of that legislation, please feel free to use the chat function, or if you are unable to use your chat function, if you're on a cell phone, then feel free to unmute yourself at this moment. Alrighty, not seeing any questions. We did have one more question for the superintendents regarding special education. The question was, can you talk about what practices you put in place for special education and what support you gave/plan to give for parents in that aspect? I will go with Ginger first. Ginger, go ahead.
Well, I know that our special ed staff I think they did a great job. They made it a point to contact every single special ed family and parent, and really worked with them to see how we could best support their IEP goals. And I know that even today, last week and this week, we have parent focus groups that we're bringing together for our special ed parents to see, what their needs are going to be. We also know that we're looking at how we can support those students this summer and possibly even bring them back early next year to be able to give them the services so that they can make the progress that is needed toward their individual education plan goals.
Wonderful, thank you. Andrew.
Yeah, that's part of our plan this summer, is that to identify gaps, starting with the SPED students, and then offering extended learning, and go from there. So yeah, we had that in plan from day one. The other thing I think I'd back up what Ginger was saying is that a lot of this was contact tracing. I think most parents know that in order for people to work during this, they farmed a lot of kids out. We had kids as far away as California during this. That's how far they got farmed out. So we were interested in finding them, contact tracing them, and working with them. So yeah, a lot of effort on that. So
wonderful, thank you. We have just over 15 minutes left. Normally we open up for any more questions from the chat, and then give our panelists just a couple of minutes to give any last words that they would like to give. So any more questions from the chat attendees? If you have any, please feel free to use that function. And I will go with Representative Dent to give any last words.
Well, thank you very much. You know, it's something I think new news that we have. I mean, it's not real news. It came out yesterday. So we're looking at $8.8 billion revenue shortfall right now as a result of this crisis that we're in. And all indications show that that will grow. So that's going to make a big difference on all aspects of our lives. You know, whether it's early learning, it's you know, our school systems are. It's going to make a difference everywhere. You know, it'll have to be. We have to cut things. We'll have to make up the budget, and then and that'll just depend on. That'll be a lot of negotiating and sorting out what our priorities are. So you know, that being said, you know, how we sort out those priorities is going to be a challenge. I was asked last week. You know, I'm big on early learning, and I understand the importance of education, and I see where mental health issues are a major issue. So and so I was asked, and it was by some educators. Well, you support early learning, you support schools, and you support mental health. Why won't you keep them all intact? Well, because there's 146 other legislators that have their opinion on all these things as well. And so this is all going to have to be negotiated out on where the money will come from and what the priorities will be for our state and for our districts, our individual districts. So, you know, that's going to be a challenge that we have facing us. So I think it's important that we keep that in mind and how we can proceed. There's many of our budgets are being cut right now, or the governor has asked these different agencies to cut budgets, and that's a good thing. One of the things that has happened is they've walked in and they're making cuts on things that were mandatory by legislation. And the legislature has the voice in some of these things where the money is spent. So, and then there's some places where they can cut. So they're going to have to go back and revisit some of their ideas on where to cut their spending to make it to stay in line with the legislature or with the Constitution, basically. Okay, so the legislature is given the power to appropriate and to spend this money. The governor is not. Okay, he's not given the power to appropriate. So as were the Supreme Court when they were levying a fine on us here a couple of years ago, they didn't have the power to do that legally. So that's something to think about, and we're going to hear those things. You know, it may not be what everybody wants to hear. I understand that. And I'm not saying that I agree with everything I just told you. What I'm trying to do is put out there what's reality and what we're going to be faced with. So when you hear these things, you know, try to understand that we're in a position of, well, we have to do the best we can, number one, and to try to be pragmatic in what we do. But we're also under the constraints of the Constitution. And that's something that we have to think about and where we can go with this money. And it is going to be a challenge. And you know, one of the things that happened in our past session that was, you know, and the session before 2019, you know, we passed a huge budget that was probably not sustainable, and we spent everything. And that's one of the problems is we didn't hold back, and so now we're looking at a bigger deficit than we would have had we held back and thought about maybe a little more in the rainy day fund. So something to think about is it's always going to be a challenge, but the next, you know, having this, so this is the end of my 6th year, and I have some great relationships with folks that have been there a long time, and I just was on a Zoom meeting this morning with our board meeting of our oversight committee for the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, and former Representative Kagi, who was there back in the Great Recession, we call it, back in 2007 and 8. You know, she talked about the cuts they made then and how difficult and how painful it was. And Ruth and I have a great relationship. And she says, Tom, I don't envy you. You're going to face with harder cuts than we had. You know, so I think I'm just saying this. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just I like to be pragmatic. And I know that those of us that live in the 13th district, we're a rural district, and we will be fine, because we know how to do this, and we'll make things work because we know how. And that's just a simple fact of our life. I feel more for the folks in the urban areas that are going to struggle quite a lot more than we do. So anyway, I just want to give you a little heads up on what we're facing that way. We will be looking at a special session. I think the governor is finally realizing that he's going to have us come back, and looking like mid to late August, I believe, is where we're going to be. And So that's going to be on our plate to go forward. And then I wanted to point out something that Andrew said earlier. They were they worked on it for 4 hours. Well, they only didn't really work on it 4 hours. They worked on it for 10 minutes and goofed off for 3 hours and 50 minutes. And, you know, Andrew, I can relate to that. I probably would have done the same thing as a boy. So, but anyway, I appreciate you having me on. I don't want to be a downer or anything, but I do want you to know what we're facing. And if you have questions or you have, you know, anything, please reach out to me and we'll do the best we can. Our lives as legislators are changing, and the information we get is changing almost daily. So, and we don't have a lot of, right now, under the state of emergency, the governor has effectively cut us out of this. So the legislature is really not engaged in what we're doing. And all that's happened, all these state of emergencies, the phases of the plans and all these different things are coming from the governor's office and him alone. We have not been engaged, and we have repeatedly asked to be engaged because we are accessible to you, our constituents, and so that's part of what coming back to the special session is going to be about. We're going to be engaged, so we can take your concerns, and I want to know what they are. Please reach out, send an email, or call me. Many of you know where I'm at, so just do that, and then we can and I can be your voice and talk on your behalf. So thank you again for having me.
Yeah, thank you. We did have a couple questions come through in the chat in that time. If we go to the hybrid model and we are facing childcare facilities closing, do you see more families and teachers needing to quit their jobs to stay at home 3 days a week? I will go with Andrew for that.
Yeah, the reason why we're trying as hard as we can to get everybody to understand that the hybrid model does not work for, I think it's at least 20, maybe 30% of our families. It will break them. There'll be far worse social issues and stuff. And you know what when I talk to people, I tell them, look, I understand the COVID health issue, but you're forgetting about a lot of mental health, economic, jobs, and all these other issues. It's almost like you're not even allowed to discuss that. And like I said, I got 4 kids and 14 grandkids, and we discuss it in private because it's such a controversial topic. But when you tell a family, hey, we're going to go hybrid, and we're only going to let your kids come in 2 days a week, you really, as a superintendent, you really got to think about your responsibility to everybody. And I'll say it right here. I feel irresponsible telling a parent that I'm only going to be able to service your kid 2 days a week. That, to me, I struggle with that right now. So, correct me if you want, but I want them in here every day of the week. Please give me the guidelines. I have my own kids, my own grandkids. I don't know how you're going to do that and survive without just going on complete welfare. And guess what? As Mr. Dent knows, next year, the state probably isn't going to have the money for that. So it's a scenario of, it's despair if you think about not coming and bringing them in. So I don't want to be on a preacher's chair on this, but we're going to try the darndest to get them all in here Monday through Friday for that very question that you just posed.
Ginger, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, of course, we're in a different position than Thorpe because we have some classrooms of even 28 to 30 students in a classroom, especially at Morgan. And so, absolutely, I agree with everything that Andrew had to say about families, and our desire is to get our students back. We all really want that. Our challenge is the social distancing part and the masks. Especially the social distancing part. We went in and we did measurements inside of our classrooms at Morgan, and then there were most of our classrooms are 900 square feet. We have a few classrooms that are more like 700 square feet, plus you've got cubbies and other kinds of structures in there. And what we found is that if we went, which means we'd have to buy desk chair combos because some of the classrooms have tables in them. If you had desk chair combos and you spread them out 6 feet apart, in most of our classrooms, we could probably fit maybe between 20 to 23 or 24 with the 6 foot apart rule. Or it's actually 6 foot distancing, promoting 6 foot distancing is the actual language from the CDC guidelines. And so, however, when Dr. Larson was on our Zoom yesterday, he was saying that they may have a consideration of saying rather than 6 feet, going to 3 feet. Certainly if they go to 3 feet, that's going to open up some more options for us. I think another big challenge for us with we have close to 800, well over 800 students, for example, at Morgan next year. The other challenge is lunch, and that is a hard and fast kind of line that because kids can't wear their masks during lunch, they have to take them off. And so we absolutely have to ensure that when kids eat lunch, that they are sitting 6 feet apart. And, you know, if we just use the cafeteria, Michelle Bibich, the principal at Morgan, was saying we'd have to have 6 lunches. So, you know, they'd be eating from like 10 o'clock until 2 o'clock. So we're trying to figure out if things get more flexible and people are okay with knowing that at Morgan, we're not going to probably be able to do the 6 foot in every classroom. It might be more like 3 foot, which if the CDC guidelines change could help us. But that 6 foot still really needs to be in place for lunches. So we're looking at, if we had to do that, we know that the cafeteria workers have said they can do pre-packaged food. So it's no more, you know, you can just imagine all the kids carrying the trays throughout the, you know, hallways. We wouldn't have to do that. They'd be pre-packaged foods, maybe even in a sack that kids could take. So, you know, would we have to use the beautiful library of Morgan's library and push everything aside and put literally chairs 6 foot apart and ask kids to eat in there? You know, those are the kinds of decisions that we're looking at just because we do have full capacity, especially at Morgan. And then some of the classrooms, I think it was at Mount Stewart, are also a little bit smaller. And some of our class sizes, especially in 4th and 5th grade, are, you know, 25 or higher. So class size and that physical distancing part are the challenges that we're working through. And I just want to really put a plug in for Dr. Mark Larson. He is phenomenal. He has been meeting with us every step of the way. He's coming to our board meeting on the 24th. And I just really appreciate him and his judgment. And we are working together lockstep to make sure that we find the very best fit for ESD.
Thank you, Ginger. We did have a couple questions coming from Tiffany. The first was, what can we do to try to get out of this state of emergency? And the second was specifically to Representative Dent. She knows you're working very hard. Is there anything else that we can do to bring about change? And would you be open to doing a telephone town hall of sorts?
Well, those are great questions. So the state of emergency, don't quote me, I don't have it memorized, but the RCW says the governor will remove the state of emergency when the crisis has passed. And so most of us believe that the crisis has passed. So my question to the governor 3 weeks ago was, okay, so I read the RCW to him, and as I say, I don't have it memorized. It's more in depth than my brief explanation there. But I says, according to what we've done here with the RCW, it appears to me that it's passed. So what is it going to take to remove us from the state of emergency? Now, the governor was not there. He's never there in the briefings we have. We always just talk to staff. Staff replied that as long as people die from COVID, we will remain in a state of emergency. Well, this virus is going to be here now. We're going to own it for a long time. There will always be somebody who will die from COVID. So that answer told us that we're in a state of emergency forever. And so most of us have a bit of an issue with that. I think we're handling this. I think we have a handle on it. I listened to these to Ginger and to Andrew, and they have a plan to be safe into the schools and make it work, and we're ready. And I think we all do, especially in rural areas. We know it. We understand social distancing. We understand that when you're sick, you stay away from people or stay away from them and stuff. So we are challenged in that the answer that we receive from staff on when we're going to be out of the state of emergency. What can you do? Write the governor's letters. Just write letters. Be vocal. That's what it takes. I tell you what, when I get 10,000 letters in my inbox, I pay attention, okay? And we all do. I mean, that's our job, is to respond. That's what we're there for. So write the letters, and that's the big thing you can do. And absolutely, I'm open for a telephone town hall, Zoom, whatever works. I am there. I'm ready. I like this stuff. I like to talk about what's going on, because there's a lot of misunderstanding and misconceptions about what we are doing as a legislature, or what, this is the things that are happening. So absolutely, be glad to do that anytime. Just give me a call.
Wonderful. Thank you. I just want to let everyone know we are recording this. We did record our last education panel, and we actually had a Q&A session with Representative Dent, Representative Ibarra, and Judy Warnick. So those are all available on our website, KittitasCountyChamber.com. Go to the COVID-19 tab, and you will see chamber webinars and informational videos. I just want to thank you all again, our panelists, Representative Dent, Ginger, and Andrew, for joining us today. I really hope to continue these in the future. Our main goal is just to get the information out there and make sure that our community has a chance to talk to you and to hear your thoughts on everything that's going on. I will just pass it over to our superintendents for any final words. Andrew, if you would like to go ahead.
Yeah, you know, as Mr. Dent knows, thank God Washington State has a local control, local support model. So, you know, that puts a lot of pressure on Ginger and I, but it also gives us the flexibility and allows us to be nimble on how we open up schools this fall. And also, you know, the financial support is local. So if we don't do things right, or more importantly, if we do this right, it's a chance for them to step up with the legislature, and you may have to infill some of that gap as we go forward, because really your local school is what you want. So I'm not pessimistic about this at all. I think the American people, when they're challenged with something, you know, I'm a former military officer and I've been around the world. We respond like no other country because we have that local control where we can step up. And that's why I couldn't wait to join this. I love hearing other people's opinions and stuff. So keep throwing that at us. We need to hear it. I had a couple of great ideas today from staff members and community members I hadn't thought of. So I'm not worried about this challenge. I would be more worried if it wasn't local control and the state controlled everything. We're far more nimble here. So I'm looking forward to this exchange of ideas. And I think we're going to come up with a better learning model overall because of this. So yeah, the one thing I would like to throw out to Mr. Dent before we leave is we're probably one of the most important things we're going to need this fall is waiver on how we deliver food. So we had to change how we delivered food this year, which is the grab and go and the nutritional standards. So this is a chance for us to reach into Congress and talk to them about ag. I'm a cherry grower. I'm going over there tonight to pick cherries for my staff. So this is an ag related issue, as Mr. Dent knows. So if we can get the ag community to step forward and really support congressional reform on how we feed kids, because I'm telling you, we can do a better job feeding kids than we've been doing. And this is a chance for parents to step forward and say, hey, let's do a better job nutritionally and actually feeding kids. So I kind of think that there's an opportunity, there's an open here in the door there to work with the ag community nationwide and deliver. It's going to take some money, but it will support our ag economy nationwide to really feed kids better and give options to our local person. We're starting our own farm here next spring. We're going to try to feed our kids. And so you understand, it's not altruistic. I want to see better, more nimble local control of how we feed kids, more on an Italian model if you study how they feed kids locally and all that. So sorry to step on the podium there, Mr. Dent, but that's a shout out to let's feed kids better starting on. Let's use this as a reason to do it. So thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. Ginger, any final words?
No, I agree with Andrew. I know for me, having all of those focus groups has been really important in informing the way that we're thinking about next year. And I really believe that together we're better. And I'm confident that as we continue to work together, we're going to find a model that really best fits the needs of our community.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Once again, thank you to our panelists. Thank you for everyone for joining. And we hope to be doing more of these education-themed panels in the future. So keep an eye on our Facebook page. Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.